Alright, for this video, we're just going to graph, that's number 4 in your worksheet, and this is where it's just a horizontal shift, that's it. That's all that's going on, but now we're going to look at a cosine function. Now remember, when we do a cosine function, it's still going to look like this, right? Kind of look like the U shape. You're going to start at the max, then you go to the equilibrium, then you go to the minimum, equilibrium, then you end at the max. Okay, and it's going to look like this because there's no negative in front of the cosine. You can see there's nothing before cosine, so the amplitude is 1. The period, well, b is 1. You can see it's 1x, so that's 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi. Okay, now start. Remember the start, I'm not going to start at 0. If you have parentheses, that means you're shifting the graph either left or right. Well, this one, there's a minus, so this means I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to shift it to the right, pi over 4 units. So we're going to go to the right of the origin. So if I wanted to get the actual starting point, I take what's in parentheses and I set it equal to 0, because that's where we usually start. So then, real easy, if you solve for x here, you add pi over 4 to both sides, your starting point's going to be pi over 4. That makes sense. You're shifting it to the right, pi over 4 units. The end, take the same thing in parentheses, x minus pi over 4, but now you set it equal to 2 pi, because that's 1 revolution, 0 to 2 pi, but you're just shifting it. So then you add pi over 4 here to both sides. Okay, it's a little messy with the fractions, but let's see here. 2 pi is the same as 8 pi over 4, so if you added pi over 4 to that, you get 9 pi over 4. So this is going to be your range here. Now if you look, if you went from pi over 4 to 9 pi over 4, the difference between those is 8 pi over 4, which equals 2 pi, which is the period. So that makes sense right there. Now to figure out all the x values in between, we have to use the increments. So the period, I take that, divide it by 4. 2 pi over 4, that reduces to pi over 2. You know what I'll probably do? Since I have these as pi over 4, I'm probably just going to use this 2 pi over 4 to keep adding to the x values to get all 5 x values. So key points, I know I start at pi over 4. I'm going to get 5 key points. Okay, I add 2 pi over 4 to this. So if I add 2 pi over 4 to pi over 4, I get 3 pi over 4. Add 2 pi over 4 to that, and I get 5 pi over 4. You can see the pattern here. Add 2 pi over 4 to 5 pi over 4, we get 7 pi over 4. And then to get our 5th point, if we had 2 pi over 4 to 7 pi over 4, it matches up. We get the ending x value of 9 pi over 4, which is this. So you kind of take a deep sigh of relief right there. That's the hardest part, getting the x values, which again has nothing to do with the trig. Now I know, since the amplitude's 1, the one thing I skipped was getting the y values. Since the amplitude is 1, the max is 1, the equilibrium 0, the minimum point is -1. So I know I start right here with the max for cosine, so this is 1. I go down to the equilibrium, which is right here, which is 0. Then I go down to the minimum right here, which is -1. Go back up to the equilibrium, which is right here, which is 0. And then I end at where I started, same y value I started with, which is the max, which is 1. So not a whole lot of thinking to get the y values. It's just a little bit of work to get the x values, because you have fractions with it. Okay, let's just take this. Let's graph it. This is really the easy part. Most of the work is done. Okay, so now we're starting to the right, pi over 4. Let's do this. We'll go 1. Okay, we'll go every one. I'll go pi over 4. This is 3 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4. So I'm kind of squeezing this in here. And I don't care how you squeeze it in. If you did it like every 2 on this, I don't care. Just as long as you label it and you have the points labeled above where it says key points. So pi over 4, we start at the max, then we go to the equilibrium. 5 pi over 4, we're at the minimum, so I'm kind of going over it right here. 7 pi over 4, equilibrium, 0. 9 pi over 4, we're back at the max. So there it is, there's our U shape. So this is what we look like here. Okay, and if you did domain, I guess the one thing I'm missing here is domain. I'll put this in. I guess I forgot to put on the other video. Domain, all real numbers. The range, well, I just use the amplitude. We're going from -1 to 1.